The flames danced a hungry orange maw, consuming the last vestiges of their pathetic resistance, and I laughed. A genuine, unburdened laugh that echoed through the clearing, mingling with the acrid scent of burning wood and something far more intoxicating, the sweet, dizzying aroma of utter control. Her desperate, flailing attack had been a pathetic flourish, easily swatted away, and now she lay broken, her mind shattered just as I'd intended. This was my symphony, and she, along with her insignificant friends, were merely discordant notes finally silenced. That moment, suspended between the crackle of immolation and the quiet hum of my burgeoning empire, felt like the culmination of weeks of meticulous planning. But every grand performance has its overture, and mine began not with fire but with a flicker of vulnerability I spotted in the mundane glow of a gas station on the edge of town. The fluorescent lights of the gas station hummed a flat, monotonous tune mirroring the dull rhythm of my own existence at that moment. I hated places like this, cesspools of desperation and mediocrity, reeking of stale coffee and unfulfilled lives. They reminded me too much of the crumbling tenement where Peter and I had spent our early years, the ever-present stench of poverty clinging to every surface. Yet even in such a setting, opportunities for advancement, or at least for distraction from the gnawing emptiness, presented themselves. My tailored suit, a pristine charcoal gray, felt like armor against the grime, its crisp lines a stark contrast to the drab uniforms of the employees. My cedar and amber cologne, a subtle weapon, lingered in the recycled air, a silent proclamation of my superiority. I ran a hand over the smooth leather of my pocket notebook, its contents a testament to my foresight, my control. The girl behind the counter, Evelyn, was a study in predictable chaos. Her eyes darted, her fingers tapped an invisible rhythm on the counter, a constant twitch in her jaw. ADHD, the medical types would label it, but I saw it as a raw nerve exposed and ripe for exploitation. She was a canvas waiting for my brushstrokes, her mind already a cacophony of internal noise, making her the perfect subject for my latest artistic endeavor. People like her, perpetually teetering on the edge of mental disarray, were so wonderfully susceptible. They wanted answers, even if those answers came from a place of manufactured terror. They sought clarity, even if it meant embracing delusion. Pathetic, really, but useful. I approached the counter, a faint, nonsensical tune, a child's lullaby twisted into something unsettling, humming beneath my breath. It was a subtle touch designed to unsettle, to plant a seed of unease. "What's your name, sweetie?" I purred, my voice a carefully modulated blend of charm and something just shy of menace. My eyes, honed by years of reading human weakness, locked onto hers. I watched the flicker of fear, the subtle widening of her pupils. She was hooked. I can see them in there. Don't try to hide. Her attempt at a dismissive laugh was transparent, a desperate effort to maintain a semblance of control. My gaze, however, was unyielding. I knew what lay beneath her flimsy facade. My financial situation was, as usual, precarious. Another ambitious art acquisition had strained my already thin resources, and Emma, bless her naive heart, was beginning to ask questions about my late nights and the sudden lack of new pieces in our modest apartment. I needed a distraction, a new project to reaffirm my genius and perhaps to remind myself that I was still the master of my own fate, unlike the helpless boy who couldn't save Peter. This girl, Evelyn, seemed like the perfect low-stakes experiment. Her psychological fragility, documented meticulously in my notebook after a few initial subtle probes, presented an irresistible challenge. The first stage of the manipulation had been set weeks ago, a subtle erosion of her reality. I'd sent old Thomas, a previous less successful project of mine, to her gas station. Thomas, broken and babbling from my previous attentions, was a perfect prop. He'd been easy to manipulate, his mind a fractured landscape of paranoia. I'd fed him just enough truth, just enough fear to make him a believable harbinger of doom. He'd stumbled in spouting nonsense about a man in a van and three voices that sing his words designed to echo the very chaos already rattling around in Evelyn's head. When he jabbed her forehead a precise instruction I'd given him and whispered, "You're hiding them, aren't you?" I knew the seed had been planted. Her mind, already a fertile ground for suggestion, would do the rest. I'd watched from a distance, a discreet observer, feeling the familiar surge of power as her discomfort registered. It was a beautiful thing watching a mind unravel knowing you held the threads. Over the following days, I had continued my subtle assault. Anonymous calls, whispers on the line that faded into static, emails with vague, unsettling phrases, each one designed to amplify the growing whispers in her mind to make her doubt her own sanity. "Don't take the pills," a carefully modulated voice, distorted just enough, would murmur. It was never a command, merely a suggestion, a faint echo. I wanted her to believe these thoughts were her own, bubbling up from the depths of her own fractured psyche. I studied her reactions, noting them in my pocket notebook, the widening of her eyes, the tremor in her hands, the subtle tightening around her mouth. She was struggling, fighting a battle she couldn't win because the enemy was unseen, insidious, and entirely of my making. "Eve, you need to listen." I'd have my digital voice whisper, ensuring the tone was urgent, laced with dread. Her mind, already prone to overstimulation, would fill in the blanks, creating a narrative of fear and urgency. The vivid, horrifying flashes she experienced, images of fire-anguished screams. The dark silhouette of a van were not random. They were carefully curated suggestions planted through subliminal messages designed to mimic trauma, to create a false memory of shared horror. I was crafting her past, shaping her present, and dictating her future. It was a symphony of psychological torment. And I was the conductor, every note precise, every crescendo controlled. This wasn't merely about breaking her. It was about demonstrating my power, my ultimate control over the human mind. The art world, with its petty squabbles and predictable egos, felt so small compared to this grand design. The plan moved to its next phase. I needed witnesses, others, to be ensnared in the web, to amplify Evelyn's terror, and to serve as useful components in the final act. Her classmates Ace, Beck, and Freddie, a predictable trio of youthful exuberance, were easy targets. I'd orchestrated their late-night visit to the gas station, a simple message planted in the right social media feed, a suggestion for a late-night snack run. They were so predictable, so utterly unaware of the larger game being played around them. I watched from the shadows, a specter of control, as they joked and argued, their mundane lives about to collide with my carefully constructed chaos. The moment I stepped closer, moving from the frozen food aisle with the quiet grace of a predator, the invisible voices in Evelyn's head would have screamed. "Run," they'd pleaded, a desperate, futile cry. It was a beautiful moment watching her freeze, rooted to the spot, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. My dark eyes bored into hers, and I allowed a knowing smile to curl my lips. "They're louder now, aren't they?" I murmured, my voice a low, intimate hiss as I passed her. The subtle confirmation, the shared secret, would solidify her delusion, make her believe I was privy to her internal world, an omniscient tormentor. The back parking lot was bathed in the sickly yellow glow of a single flickering streetlight. The shadows, my allies, shifted and coalesced as my operative, a hulking brute named Silas, moved with predatory grace. He wasn't a shadow creature, and of course merely a man I'd hired for his imposing stature and unquestioning loyalty. He carried Ace's unconscious body with effortless ease, a testament to his efficiency. A low, guttural growl I imagined would emanate from his chest, a primal sound designed to instill terror. He moved with deliberate, grotesquely fluid motions, each step accompanied by the faint crunch of gravel. His head tilted unnaturally, a calculated affectation to enhance the terror as he slung Ace over his shoulder. The headlights of the black van flared, cutting through the oppressive darkness. It was my van, of course, modified to my specifications, its interior lined with sound-dampening material and, yes, faint, glowing symbols etched into its side. These weren't mystical runes, but rather a stylized representation of my personal philosophy control order and the beautiful unraveling of the human mind. They pulsed faintly, powered by a discreet battery pack, adding to the atmosphere of otherworldly dread. "Bad man," a raspy voice croaked behind Evelyn. It was Elliot, the missing sheriff's son, another of my previous converts. His head bandaged, a pinkish froth staining the gauze. He was a shell of his former self, a perfect puppet, and I'd positioned him precisely for this moment. Before Evelyn could scream, Elliot, following my silent command, shoved her into the van. The stench of gasoline and decay was deliberate, a psychological cue I'd introduced designed to evoke a sense of imminent destruction. The walls lined with my symbols glowed faintly, a constant reminder of my pervasive influence. "You should have listened." The voices in her head would whisper, their tone tinged with regret, a final crushing blow to her sanity. Beck's sobs, Freddy's futile attempts at comfort, Ace's motionless form, all played their part in the tableau of terror. They were not victims to me, merely elements in my grand design. I twisted Peter's tarnished silver ring on my right hand, the cool metal a comforting anchor against the rising tide of exhilaration. This was so much better than the fleeting thrill of an art deal. This was true creation. Inside the van, the reality of their situation would hit them with the force of a physical blow. The voices in Evelyn's head, now frantic and jumbled, would try to warn her, a cacophony of fear and desperation. Beck's sobs, Freddy's comforting words, Ace's unconsciousness all served to deepen the psychological pressure. The van stopped and I dragged them out one by one, myself or Silas, ensuring the terror was palpable. The night air was thick with the scent of gasoline and decay, a carefully curated sensory assault. I watched a silent maestro as the flames erupted around us, consuming everything just as I had planned. We were led to the clearing, a natural amphitheater for my performance. A circle of figures stood, their faces obscured by hooded cloaks. These were not cultists, no, merely a handful of my more enthusiastic associates drawn by the promise of power and a share in the spoils. The acrid scent of burning wood mingled with something fouler, the lingering remnants of the accelerant, yes, but also the scent of fear, of desperation, a scent I found intoxicating. Faint murmurs and whispers floated on the breeze, an otherworldly cadence I'd piped in through hidden speakers designed to heighten the atmosphere. The crunch of dried leaves underfoot seemed deafening in the oppressive silence, and I could hear the distant crackle of flames as my hooded figures began to sway in unison, their movements eerily synchronized. Each step I took seemed to amplify the malevolence of the atmosphere, the hair on the back of my neck standing on end. Not from fear, but from the sheer thrill of it all. I began chanting a language of power and control, my words vibrating in the air like a low hum. It was a dead tongue resurrected for this very purpose, its guttural sounds designed to terrify. Beck screamed a high, piercing sound of pure terror as the flames closed in. Freddy, bless his pathetic loyalty, tried to shield her, but it was no use. The voices in Evelyn's head were deafening now, a cacophony of fear and anger. "Stop him," they commanded. "You have to stop him." Her body moved on its own, driven by their desperation, by my manipulation. She lunged at me, her hands clawing at my face, a desperate, futile attempt to regain control. I laughed, a genuine, unburdened sound that echoed through the clearing as I tossed her aside like a rag doll. She was so utterly predictable, so delightfully broken. 3 days later, I received the report. She'd been found on the side of the road, bloodied and shaved bald. a touch of theatricality, the shaved head, a final symbolic severing of her ties to sanity. What happened, her mother had sobbed as paramedics loaded her into the ambulance. But Evelyn couldn't explain what she didn't fully understand because the truth was far too simple. I had broken her. The police predictably didn't believe her. Evelyn, there's no way they're in your head. The doctors had insisted, prescribing stronger meds, further cementing her isolation, her perceived madness. But every time she closed her eyes, she would see the flames, the hooded figures, and my cold, triumphant smile. She was a living monument to my power. In the weeks that followed the whispers, my whispers returned, faint but persistent. They were different now, their tone more urgent. It's not over, they warned. He's still out there. I ensured she began to see flashes of me in her mind's eye, standing in a crowd, watching from a distance, always just out of reach. It was a subtle, ongoing torment, a reminder that I was everywhere, always present. I still heard them, the echoes of her terror, the fractured remnants of her mind, Beck's prayers, Ace's rage, Freddie's sorrowful whispers. They were inside her, and they were growing stronger, a testament to my enduring influence. Don't let him win, they would chant in unison now, a chorus of her own self-destruction. She didn't know who they were warning her about, but she feared the man in the suit wasn't finished with her yet. And she was right. Somewhere in the distance, I could still hear the faint hum of an engine, my engine, and the haunting echo of my laughter. The sound sent a cold shiver down her spine, a grim reminder that the nightmare wasn't over. Her mind would churn with dread, wondering if she'd ever be free from the horrors I'd embedded within her. The voices would stir their whispers, growing louder as fear gripped her. You can't run forever, they would murmur, their words blurring with her own thoughts. The line between what's real and what's within her continued to dissolve, leaving her trapped in an endless cycle of terror. The van's headlights would pierce through her nightmares, a chilling reminder that the shadows in the night were far from gone. She was broken, a masterpiece of my manipulation, and the world would soon see what I was truly capable of. I twisted Peter's ring, a ghost of a smile playing on my lips. This was just the beginning.